the first question that people ask attorneys when they call, unless they're contingency, right, is, well, how much is it? And attorneys have expressed for years now, at least a decade, I hate it. I hate it. I pay for all these leads, I pay for PPC, and the first question that people ask me is, how much?
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hair. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast.
Most professionals in claims, law, and business have expertise, but they struggle to get that expertise to reach the right audience in a way that builds trust and drives real results. Today's guest, Dennis Meador, has spent 3 decades helping experts simplify how they're positioned in the marketplace and, more recently, has launched the Legal Podcast Network to give attorneys and professionals a strategic, turnkey way to use podcasting as a content engine and authority machine without the tech headache. Whether you're a lawyer or any other type of professional, this podcast is for you. Please welcome Dennis Meador. DM, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Great to be here, my man.
So I feel like, let me start with this. I feel like this is a dying breed, but you started as like an entrepreneur back when you were like an early teenager. I think a lot of us did, right? I think you were doing snow shoveling. Is that right?
I wasn't, but the kids that worked for me did, yes.
My man, I love that. But I think that's pretty typical within a certain age range. I worry that our kids these days are not getting those opportunities to kind of run their own businesses. But that entrepreneurship was so big for you back then. A lot of kids had their own businesses, right? But they didn't have other people really working for them. What caused you to want to be a boss and want to kind of manage other people that early?
Well, 2 things. One, I was the oldest of 6 kids, so I knew how to delegate. My parents jokingly always said, we don't ask you to do stuff around the house because you don't do it. We're like, take the trash out. And I'm like, Josh, come on. And then, my brother would kind of tag along. And then by the time we got to the trash can, he was carrying the trash, throwing in the trash. My parents were like, you don't. So I had the art of delegation as an innate ability. So when we started, we were knocking on doors. It was cold. And the other 2 hated knocking on doors. And so eventually what I started doing is I was just like, well, I can knock on the doors. Like, that's the easy part. It's the snow shoveling that I hate. And so what I noticed just as a young teenager was that I could do what I liked, they could do what they liked, and then we could do more together. And so, we ended up, doing snow shoveling, and then we did lawn mowing, and then we did leaf raking, and then we did paper routes. And it was like a year-round thing for a couple of years. And I had 5 or 6 young men that were doing all those different jobs, and I would go collect the money, get new jobs if somebody wanted more jobs, and I just kind of facilitated and made more money than all the kids, and then sometimes made more money than my own parents doing it. So it's just one of those things that, it was the ability to delegate and the desire not to be cold and sore. That is what brought me into that sort of idea of having other people do it as opposed to myself.
I suspect that ability and desire have led to a lot of good things. So knowing that, at an astonishingly young age, you figured out that if you put people in positions where their skills actually resonate, everyone performs better. What caused you to come up with this vision for the Legal Podcast Network?
So I've worked with attorneys for about 20 years in digital marketing since...
Can you hear me? Sorry. No, I said I'm sorry.
Condolences. Gotcha. I thought you said like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I was like, no, it's only attorneys that say that. Yeah. So, I'd worked with them a long time. I'd been in a partnership with the guy. We were doing SEO sort of concept. And every once in a while, like, we would include like a podcast, like, in their package, but it was a little labor intensive and my partner didn't want to keep doing that. But I kept hearing for a couple of years, like, oh, you guys doing that podcast thing yet? Do you guys help with podcasts? So I presented to my partner. I was like, hey, man, like, why don't we do podcasts for lawyers? We ended up launching an answering service instead. And so when he and I, December 1st of 23, we had a 5-year agreement. He opted to buy me out. That's fine. I was about a year into living, I live on an island in Belize. So it wasn't like I could just like wake up and go get a job at the sales center. So being an entrepreneur my whole career, or most of my career, I keep a book with business ideas, and the podcast network was sitting on paper, and it had been for about a year. So I was like, I'm going to start this podcast network. I already did podcasting and I love it. I already know attorneys are somehow hearing that they need one because they keep asking me how they can get one. I just didn't have an answer until I created what I created. And so that's kind of where that idea came out of. So then December of 23, I started building the groundwork. I had my VA that I'd had for years. Her and I started building things. I had a guy that had worked with me previously come over and say, "Hey, I want to work with you." So then he was doing a lot of the like graphics and website stuff. We launched on May 1st of 2024, and here we are 19 months later.
So let's break some of this down, not just how it works, but why. Um, so do you need a podcast, and if so, why?
I think you need a podcast if you are in a place where you are being commoditized with your competitors. So most solo to small practitioners, what I've heard for years now because of the commoditization of the industry through the internet and the directories and things like that, is the first question that people ask attorneys when they call, unless they're contingency, right, is, well, how much is it? And attorneys have expressed for years now, at least a decade, I hate it. I hate it. I pay for all these leads, I pay for PPC. And the first question that people ask me is, how much? And I got these younger guys or these younger attorneys, and my rate's 400, they're 250. And so I began like kind of just thinking about that, like, okay, why is it that attorneys, the first question they get, because when I was a kid, like an attorney was an esteemed position in society. Sure, there were comedians that said this and that about it or whatever, but for the most part, most kids aspired to be a doctor or a lawyer. That was what we were told we needed to aspire to be. But those aspirations are definitely not there anymore. And so I realized it was an issue of positioning, that the attorney was being approached in the wrong way. So while all the attorneys are trying to be shinier and happier and better logos and better websites, I'm like, it's not you, it's the way that people are approaching you. So that's why, for me, what we do is we call them authority podcasts. So there's different ways and types of podcasts. Not all podcasts are a couple of people sitting around, talking about this, that, and the other. Some of them are informational, they're helpful podcasts. So what we do is we basically sit them down for about 17 to 21 minutes is how long the episode ends up cut. It's 7 to 10 questions about a very specific issue. You know, I am getting a divorce in Atlanta. I've got a lot of assets. I own my own company. Do I have to give my wife half the company? Then you watch this 20-minute podcast that talks about being a business owner and the types of things that this attorney has experienced with, this sort of situation. So then you maybe watch another episode or two, and now you're saying, this is my attorney. They know they know my situation. They've helped people just like me. And so now the differentiating factor is no longer the cost. It is the knowledge set. And so now the approach goes from how much to how much would it take me to be able to work with you? Although on paper, that's a very similar question. You and I both know that is a very different question. So that's why I think attorneys need a podcast, is because number one, it allows them to position themselves from people who are approaching them to approach them as somebody with a knowledge set, not just somebody with a shiny ad. But secondly, it's evergreen. Like, you throw $10,000 or $150,000 at PPC in a year and you don't get any good cases out of it. I mean, do you get a refund check from Google that says, "Sorry about it, buddy. I know you spent a lot, but there's just not much we can do about it. Better luck next year." Yet when you build assets like a podcast, a video series, or things like that, you can benefit from it not just for 3 days or 3 months, but for 3 years and maybe even 3 decades. A lot of my
Mm.
clients come from guys who've shot 1 or 2 videos 2 or 3 years ago, ended up getting a huge case off of it, and then they're like, I wonder if I did more videos and more, evergreen sort of content, I wonder if I would have more results like that." And my answer is simply yes. So those are the two main things, authoritative positioning and the fact that you're investing your marketing dollars instead of just spending your marketing dollars.
Yeah, well, obviously I agree, I guess, or we wouldn't be sitting here on a
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
But, I think it's interesting, and I've had other attorneys, other public adjusters, appraisers, and even some contractors, honestly, start a podcast or try to start a podcast, I should say. They do a couple episodes, they release it on whatever, usually YouTube or something like that, and then they stop. And I talk to them about why they stopped, what happened, and they can't really figure out what or why. It kind of reminds me of that South Park episode with the underpants gnomes. It's like they know they need to make the podcast, and then they think it's going to result in profit, but they're not sure what happens in between, right? So cool, you've done your episode, and we'll circle back to that because I know the Legal Podcast Network, one of the biggest things is they really help with making the episode. So we'll circle back to that, but let's skip a step. And once you've got your podcast that you're happy with, that you think is what you need, that you think is going to help you generate authority in the market, what the hell do you do with it?
Well, one is you make sure it doesn't just go to YouTube. You put it wherever you can. We put our clients' episodes on 25 different outlets, and we're always looking for more because people speak different digital languages. People that listen to podcasts on Apple don't listen to them on Spotify. People that watch YouTube podcasts don't listen to them on Apple. And so you're fragmenting your own results when you just place in one place. But besides that, I would say you have to understand that you have to build an audience and you have to build into the algorithm. Those are two things that have to happen. Now, the audience building, what I call authority podcasts, what we focus on primarily with our attorneys, and we don't only do these, but these are the ones that we've found to be the most effective for our attorneys that, just like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do it. How do I? Sort of like that sort of mind frame.
Mhm.
But we tell them, we're like, listen, first 4 months that you do this, you're going to have friends, family, peers, maybe a couple of people that are on the fringe that almost worked with you. They come in. But for the most part, you're just building your audience. You're getting the algorithm acclimated to the fact that you are submitting this content. Because what the algorithms look for, and I don't care what algorithm it is, there is one core tenet that is probably the main tenet to every algorithm, which is custom content on a continual basis that keeps people watching it will always kill it in the algorithm. And so a lot of people will create custom content, but they don't do it on a continual basis. And they don't end up allowing that cumulative algorithmic effect to take place so that when somebody does a query-based search, which is what LLMs are based off of now, you're going to show up for answering, I just got my fourth DUI. What do I do? Or
Mm.
whatever that specific question is for your archetype. So you have to understand that you're building into it. You have to get the algorithms comfortable with you, using you, referring to you, and then you start to see those results. One funny thing that's happening right now, we've had 4 clients who left us a year ago. Not because they hated us, not because of purely because they're like, we just want to try something else. Because there's a lot of like mentality of, well, I'll try this marketing program for a bit. And if it doesn't yield me more cases than I've ever had in my life, then I'll go try this other thing for a bit.
And for
Well,
our non-lawyer listeners, real quick, I'll just interject. This is very much the case for working with lawyers. Lawyers will spend an insane amount of money on marketing overall, like far more of their budget than other industries would consider to be responsible. However, because lawyers are not marketers and typically don't understand marketing, lawyers will also be the first to fire their marketing vendors and try something different at the drop of a hat. And it's not that there's no loyalty, but I got to imagine from the marketing side, it feels like there's no loyalty. So sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to, for the public
oh yeah,
adjusters and appraisers, I wanted them to have that background because this happens a lot. This is a very common experience, and you've been in legal marketing for a while, so I'm sure it's been your
oh
experience.
yeah, oh yeah. And so 4 of them contacted us this month, and they were like, we were looking back at our caseload this year, and we got a number of cases from what we did with you in 23, or sorry, in 24. We need to be back into this. Like we're mad that we stopped. And again, it's because of that cumulative effect and what it does over time. And so I think we need to understand. So what we tell our clients is, I'll have somebody say, I'll try it for 4 months. I'll say, then don't sign up because we do 4-month contracts. because I want that barrier of entry to feel painless. So if they're like, I'll try you for 4 months, see what you can do, I'll just say, nope, I'm not interested. What do you mean? And I'll be like, because if you're doing this for 4 months, you're not going to be happy. If you aren't thinking at least 8 or 12 months, then you probably need to find something else. And they're like, okay, fine, I'll, give it 8 months and things like that, or 12 months. If people pass 6 months with us, they start getting that fruition, our retention of people who make it 6 months is like way off, like 94, 95%. It kind of goes around there because we know if we can get them to stick around long enough to see the results, it's kind of like, they're going out into an empty field and they're putting down, they're planting corn in the field or beans and whatever else. And then they sit there for 2 days and they're like, forget this. This doesn't work. And then they walk off and then they come back 3 months later and they're like, whoa, there's a field full of, vegetables and fruit here. So that's kind of the principle, and I think that that's why they do that.
I'm laughing 'cause it's a fair analogy, but you know, um, and it's so funny because it makes them sound silly, but it doesn't feel silly in the moment for those law firms, right? Because what we're doing constantly, I can speak for us as lawyers, is we're looking at this money coming out on these marketers, and we don't know who's sold us, snakeskin oil, whatever the phrase is. I wow, I blanked. We don't know who sold us a load of crap and who sold us something real, and we're hemorrhaging this money. And usually when we call a marketer and say we're not seeing any results, they say two things: stick in there and spend more, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is the
Oh,
most
yeah.
frustrating thing to hear when you're sitting there saying, I don't know if I can afford to pay you. And
Right.
now I'm asking you for more results, and you're saying, keep paying me, and you might want to consider paying me more, and I'm like, well, what the hell did you sell me? Because I really just don't know. It is snake oil. It is snake oil. But but anyway, that's very much the experience. So that makes sense to me. So let's talk about the process a little bit, if that's okay. I think,
Sure.
I mean, it's my podcast. I guess it's okay. But no,
I give you permission to talk about what you want on your podcast.
thank you, sir. All right, but no, you're working with your clients, your customers who are lawyers, so I'm assuming they've got opinions about things. However, they've also
Mhm.
got a lot of knowledge, right? So, what do you do to kind of make this barrier of entry low? Because I'm hoping you don't tell them you need to go buy $10,000 worth of equipment, hire a full-time staff member to cut all these things. What's your user experience look like?
So we are front to back turnkey. So when they come on, they meet with our onboarding team. The onboarding team is trying to find out three things: their client profile, not just I'm a divorce lawyer, but I'm a high asset divorce lawyer that focuses on men with custody issues. If you could be that granular in your market. So their client profile, their jurisdictional profile. Well, my ideal client is billionaires, but I live in Podunk, Arkansas, and there's 30,000 people in 3 counties, and that's all I serve. Well, okay, fine, but your jurisdictional profile doesn't match your ideal client profile, so let's align those. And then last, their brand profile. And that's really who they are. Are they, high energy? Are they kind of a little aggressive? Are they a little bit, who are they? We use that. We have a content team, two ladies who are ahead of that. One lady who's done content with me we've worked together 7, 8 years. She's interviewed and put together content plans for thousands of attorneys. Another young lady on the team who is a second generation copywriter and content writer. And one's in Atlanta, one's in DFW. And so they put together a content plan based on the client's profile, the jurisdictional profile, and the attorney's profile. We then have a host. We have 6 or 7 of them. So they put together the questions that are based on the client, and it's just very simply 7 to 10 questions, depending on their question answer arc. That the host, when we put co-host of the Level Up Claims show, right? So then the host is like, "Hi, I'm Joe. Today we're with Attorney Johnson again. Attorney Johnson, you know, today we're going to talk about, whatever, high asset divorces for men in Georgia and 5 things that they really need to know before they sit down with an attorney and have an order." And so we'll just do that for 20 minutes. And what we tell our attorneys is, listen, you can start with what we call an across the desk sort of approach, where it's just a webcam, a decent, thing, some light from your window, and you talking just as if we're sitting across from the desk because it appears as natural. Or you can have what we call a polish show, which is, something like well, we're probably both like the third level, what I call, but a polished show will have like a nice background. Everything looks neat. They do a little bit of lighting. They're not spending like $10,000, but they're maybe spending $2,000. And then we have what we call in studio shows. And an in studio show is simply you have a studio set up, and we have people that do that. And then that's going to cost. I mean, like for me, I have about 7K in my office here in Belize. I've got a big light. I forget what they call that. It's like an umbrella thing. A fill light. I've got a 77-inch television behind me that I use as my background, and then I got a DSLR there with a $300 camera here. So all in, yeah, it's like 7K. So usually what happens is most of our attorneys start with the desk, and then they get a couple of clients, and they're like, "What do I need to do now? You want me to get a studio? I'll go rent a whole new place." Like, how we're like, "Well, I mean, you can."
I bought a building where we're gonna do podcasts, DM. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that. Like, and we're just like, I mean, great. And actually we're in the process right now of creating, because I was trying to decide if I wanted to do it in-house. But I'm really big about, because you mentioned that thing about attorneys or about marketers where they're like, "Oh, you wanted it to work, it costs more." Because I've seen that with attorneys, that sort of like frustration of like, where a marketer will be like, "Well, it's only $500 a month." And they're like, "Oh, 500, sure." And then they buy it, and then they call and they're like, "Oh, you know what you need? You need the $700 package." "Oh, okay, fine." "Oh, well, you need the 1,000. "Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't tell me you wanted it to work." "Well, that's the $3,000 package." Right? So I know there's frustration with that. And so what we try to do is say, "Listen, we create guardrails. We create, you could be kind of more colloquial." I have one guy, he's been with me since the beginning. He's in Massachusetts. He's a bankruptcy attorney. He sits back in a ratty t-shirt, bad lighting, desk camera, but it's his show. I mean, I can't tell the guy you can't do that on your podcast. He gets clients because you know what? Who he is on camera is who he is when they sit across from him.
There
And
you
so
go.
if they are wanting to work with him based on his camera appearance, it's no different than if they show up and meet with him.
There you
And
go.
so we try to accommodate, and we try to take that into effect. You could do it I always tell people, listen, an 8-year-old can have a podcast. They can take their iPhone, put it on a stand, talk into it for 15 minutes, and upload it to Apple. Like it's the barrier of entry is super low. So the level of professionalism and production is going to be dependent on you. You can spend not very much, or you could really go all in on it. Most people go all in on it after they've been with us for a bit, and they're like, "Wow, I just got 4 cases last week from people saying I was listening to your podcast, found your videos on social media," because we chop everything up. We do the content, we do the show build, we do the production, we do the editing, we do the distribution, we do the marketing. We create 30 pieces of content per episode. We distribute all the marketing. We're getting ready to launch a streaming TV network called LPN Life for lawyers, and then LPN Answers from lawyers. And we're tacking on a white glove matching service because we are creating an ecosystem of success with using media as a professional.
Wow. That's impressive. And, not look, having had to build this podcast from the ground up and gone through some of the iterations that you mentioned, started very much on a computer on Zoom. I think we used Zoom initially, and then you realize there's better things out there, and then you're like, well, I should get this camera, and yeah, now I'm sitting in a room with pretty much, for you guys at home that actually care, pretty much the same equipment that DM just described, which just tells me that either the internet's correct or great minds think alike or both. But
Probably both.
who knows? Probably the internet, really. But in any case, it's an impressive system. Now, let's talk briefly, I guess, as we kind of almost run out of time. Where do you think the future of podcasting goes, though? Because I feel like all this AI generated content, everything coming up all over the place, right? Potential for content overload, but at the same time, AI picking up and finding these podcasts. How do you think podcasters are going to need to change or look forward to the future?
Well, I just so happen to be answering that exact question on January 13th with our premiere of our new podcast, BAM, Building Authority Through Media. Sorry, I had to act like I was just like a pitch man there for a second. I get asked that question a lot, and this is really what I believe. Number one, production value, and you already understand it. What I tell attorneys is, yes, you can do the across the desk thing, but at the end of the day, Let me ask you a question. If I go on YouTube and the 14-year-old down the street has 3 cameras, proper lighting, everything looks great, and it's a 14-year-old, and then I go on your podcast that's poorly lit, poor camera, not great audio, do you think I'm going to be impressed by that?
Yeah.
Probably not. So the bar for
Fair point.
production is going to keep rising, just like every other media. Look at the rise of radio, the rise of television, YouTube rise. First, it was just content is enough, but then it had to be content that was produced well. And then the last one is entertainment value. And that's what we're trying to do with this new show. It's called Building Authority Through Media. It is a 90s Saturday morning cartoon inspired AI generated podcast. So it's me as a voice actor. I'm Bam Man. I have 2 people on my AI and automations team that are building this and other stuff in the company. And I have on experts from Link. The first one we do is Journey Through the Land of LinkedIn. So I have on, a few experts that are like legal LinkedIn experts. And we take like a narrative journey and we talk about like how to fight, clout content and a biohazardous bio and things like that. And so that's, in my opinion, you're going to have to find a way to not just produce good content that looks good, it needs to be entertaining as well. And whether that's our personality or our production, delivery mechanism is really going to be up to us. I think that where we can go is we can just sit back and be like, okay, well, what if we did this and create a show about this? And the content comes from our brain, but the delivery mechanism just keeps going up and up and up and up. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd rather watch a funny, cool Saturday morning style cartoon that was reminiscent of my childhood and learn about how to be a better marketer as a legal person. But that's
For
just me.
sure.
Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it might land with a thud. Who knows? But I'm excited about it. And I genuinely think that that's where it's going. The more I see, the more I talk, the more success I see is the production value going up and the entertainment value going up.
I agree. I think that makes sense, and I can't wait to see how this new show goes. We'll be watching it with bated breath. DM, you've been super generous with your time. I told you I wouldn't keep you too long. So before you go, will you tell the audience what it means to you to level up?
For me, leveling up, I'm always, it's just another step on the stairs. I don't think leveling up ever changes for people who are trying to do just that. It's just for me like the word better. When does better stop? So to me, level up is somebody who's just always climbing stairs. And, they can look back and go, look where I've come, but they're also looking ahead and always saying, look where I still want to go. Because I think sometimes we use level up as like, I got there, I've arrived. And people who feel like they've arrived stagnate very quickly.
I could not agree more. DM, thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. Have a happy new year. And hopefully we'll run into each other, talk soon, something. Maybe I'll have you
Uh,
be a character on my, you'll be a fellow superhero in a dynamic duo episode.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
All right, my man. Thank you.
I'd like to thank DM Dennis Meador for joining us on the show. I could not agree more with what he said about leveling up. It's really this continuous climb, and the second you stop, you stagnate. But more importantly, whether you're an attorney, a public adjuster, an appraiser, or even a contractor, this whole looking forward, increasing production value, and building authority is so important. In a world where so much content is just everywhere, and frankly, most of it's trash, doesn't it make sense to you to stand out in order to prevent being commoditized and actually get the customers and the clients that you want? Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And make sure you like and subscribe to keep up to date on our latest podcasts.